Well, his work is now shown in major museums and galleries, but Jesse Krimes created some of his first artwork in prison.
And following his release, he's also become a strong advocate for the formerly incarcerated and for reforming the overall system of mass incarceration. Senior arts correspondent Jeffrey Brown reports from Philadelphia for our Art in Action series, exploring the role of art in democracy, which is part of our Canvas coverage.
A correctional facility in Philadelphia. A mural high on a city wall. A quilt hanging in a downtown museum. All with a common name, Riverside, and all connected by artist Jesse Krimes.
The connection for me is, me personally, is how to be a conduit. How do I create things out in the world that can help amplify or make visible or create new narratives and ways of seeing and thinking for people who are quite literally hidden behind walls.
Well, they've been taken out of the community.
Right.
At Philadelphia's Fabric Workshop and Museum, Krimes' latest exhibition is titled Elegy Quilts, from a series he began in 2020 during the pandemic. Each quilt is a kind of portrait of an incarcerated individual, but without the actual person, other than pieces of his or own clothing or bed sheets that were sent to Krimes.
Up there, you can see the button from a shirt. And so this entire striped tree is actually from a button-up shirt that someone had given me.
Also missing, the prison. Instead, Krimes asked people to send him a favorite memory of home, an animal they love. He then created a scene and an absence.
You wanted us to see something other.
Yeah, because the viewer senses some kind of absence. Like, why are all of these empty chairs or empty beds or empty bathtubs? And so, like, you get a sense of that loss.
Krimes taught himself to sew and quilt specifically for the project. The goal, as with much of his work,
challenging just these kind of damaging, harmful narratives that have existed for a very long time around the stigma of people who happen to have made a mistake and end up behind prison walls. Because for me, some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life were behind those walls.
Between 2001 and 2013, Krimes, and that is his real name, spent nearly 8 years in state and federal prisons on nonviolent drug charges. An only child born to a 16-year-old single mother growing up in rural Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and often left alone, he says making things has always been a place of safety, something he could call his own. Later, he would study at the Tyler School of Art and then Millersville University in Pennsylvania. But from his teens on, he was in and out of trouble, capped by a federal drug charge and, while awaiting sentencing, nearly a year in solitary. Punishment, he says, was meant to coerce him to give information on others, which he refused.
Literally every part of my identity out in the world has been removed. But I realized there was one thing that they couldn't take from me, and that was my ability to create and actually make something that is mine, that gave me autonomy. And so I just decided from that moment on that no matter what kind of time I got as a sentence, I was going to use every minute and every hour of every day to make something positive in the world, and that was my artwork.
He made works that years later have been exhibited at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, altering materials at hand in prison. In Apocalyptine 16389067, his inmate number, he used bed sheets and hair gels. In Purgatory 2009, playing cards, prison-issued bars of soap, and mugshots, creating piece by piece what he would later, on the outside, assemble into a large work.
I started collecting the cards from the guys, and I would buy them new decks of cards and take their old ones, and I would cut off the faces of the kings, jacks, and queens, and glue them together to create like a container that I would then house the soaps in, putting the mugshot of the offender where the royalty was, and cover it up and put them in envelopes and kind of sneak them out of the prison.
You must have been a little surprised some years later that they were in the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
I was quite surprised.
Released in 2014, Krimes has since combined his own art making with work on behalf of others, including the creation of the Center for Art and Advocacy in Brooklyn, New York, aimed at supporting and exhibiting formerly incarcerated artists, while also calling attention to what he sees as a brutal system of mass incarceration. one he says makes all of us less safe.
We're putting them behind prison, not for rehabilitation, but for storage, often for decades. And then those people eventually get released and come back to the community. And there's no support systems, there's no mental health, there's no wellness, there's no real programs, there's no programs inside, there's no real programs outside to support that transition. And you're basically ensuring that you have future victims.
At 43, Krimes also continues to work with Mural Arts Philadelphia, a group dedicated to public art of all kinds, including arts programs inside and out of local correctional facilities. The Elegy Quilts exhibition features a series of small collages made by formerly incarcerated individuals who joined in workshops with Krimes, again prompted to think about places of comfort. December Collins did that and more.
I see your name.
Yes, December. And
You couldn't resist?
no, I couldn't. It just popped out to me at the end of me cutting out pictures through magazines and all these things. But it was just more so like I feel like my life was just like a big old jumble of good and bad, shall I say. So I just felt like me being a centerpiece, it created this space for who I was becoming.
For his part, Jesse Krimes took various images from the collages, including December's, and put them into the quilt titled Riverside. His own life experience, he says, continues to compel his art as well as his advocacy. But I also asked about the victims of crimes or their loved ones who may not always get a second chance to turn around their lives.
What do you say to people like that?
I don't claim to have those answers. Everyone has the right to think and feel how they want on this issue. But for me personally, I want to have the space to heal, and I want to create the space for others to heal.
The Jesse Krimes Elegy Quilts exhibition is on through November 1st. For the PBS News Hour, I'm Jeffrey Brown at the Fabric Workshop and Museum in Philadelphia.